me answer your question by saying,
Yeah.
say to the Dr. Cameron, if that's your God, then your God.
So you want to be in a prison?
God allows that, then I your God.
You want to be in a
Then
prison?
I don't want your God.
You want to be in a prison? How, as a Christian, do I reconcile the fact that the world is vicious and cruel with the fact that I believe in a God who loves me? How do I deal with that? This is how. So what was your issue about politics and Christianity then?
Well, no, I think the point I wasn't being rude to you.
I know you weren't, I understand.
I was asking you a genuine question.
So what?
The genuine question was, I saw this guy with a board here talking about Israel and America, I think it was. And
Shall we stand over here?
You giving me your God thing, which I understand. You're entitled to your view. But I'm like, if you like, I'm like you, or not like you. I've been searching for so-called truth that people seem to know.
Yeah.
I've been searching for that. Have I ever found it? No.
Okay.
Have I read the Bible? If you ask me, of course I have. I was brought up to be a Christian.
Yeah.
Have I read the Quran? Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Have I been to India? And I've looked at some Paramahansa Yogananda and all the rest of it. I've done all of that.
Yeah.
And I've looked at Buddhism, and generally speaking, I don't. Unlike you, I don't know. You profess to know, and that I find very, very curious.
Okay.
You know.
So let me give you the grounds of my knowing. So the grounds of my knowing as a Christian start with the resurrection. You see, if Jesus Christ, who was a man, truly was resurrected from the dead, if he was truly resurrected from the dead, then that means that Christianity is true. Full stop. End of story. Because if a man, yes, exactly. If that happened, would you agree that if Jesus Christ rose from the dead, then Christianity is the truth?
Then it's more likely to be the truth. Yes.
Right. So I am personally convinced, for good reasons, that Jesus Christ truly rose from the dead. And this is the grounding of my knowing. This is the reason for my certainty. Not that I know the truth in every detail, on every matter, on every question. I certainly don't. But on the big fundamental questions around which we should orientate our lives, which is based upon our discipleship as students of being students of Jesus Christ and following his teachings.
But your basic premise could well be wrong. The foundation of your premise could be entirely wrong. If Jesus Christ if the resurrection is true,
yes,
you don't know that.
Well, no. Here's the thing: the thing is, in terms of what we can say we know, it's 100% certain. Is weighed based upon the evidence.
The evidence. I am refusing the evidence. I'm saying to you, I would love to have that evidence.
Right.
Show me the evidence that there was a crucifixion and Jesus rose from the dead.
So let's talk about the evidence, right? So you say you want to look at evidence. So in terms of the evidence, what we have multiple authors, both Christian and non-Christian, that testify to the fact that Jesus was crucified. So allow me to elicit what these are. So you've got, for instance, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Paul. You've also got Tacitus, Josephus. You've got Suetonius. I can pull up a longer list. But both Christian and non-Christian sources testified to the fact that Jesus Christ was crucified.
And that therefore it follows that the Christian faith is true.
Well, no, you asked me to give you evidence of the crucifixion and resurrection, so I'm dealing with the crucifixion first, because you can't have a resurrection without a crucifixion, agreed?
I guess.
Right. So I'm dealing with the crucifixion first. So the thing is, if we
I don't dispute that there was a prophet, Jesus, who was crucified, which by the way was not uncommon death.
No, exactly. So there's nothing in terms of these statements that is really that we need to dispute.
The rising from the dead.
Right. Does that mean that we are now agreed that there was a man called Jesus That he was
It
crucified.
seems most likely, and that seems very likely.
Great. Okay. Right. So now let's move on to the resurrection. Okay. So in terms of the resurrection, again, we have multiple independent sources that are very early that testify to post-mortem experiences of the crucified Jesus. So my first question, what's your name, brother?
Rob.
Rob. Okay.
Roberts.
Yeah, you don't need to. Robert's fine. Okay, so Robert, what would convince you that a man you know to be dead is alive?
The man I know to be dead is alive.
Yeah, think of anyone you know who is dead, that you love, that you care about.
Someone I lost recently. Yeah.
Okay, well, God rest their soul. But what would convince you that that person is alive again?
Couldn't be convinced that person is dead.
Right. Okay. If you're saying that you could not be convinced, then what you're saying is that no evidence could convince you. So you've made an a priori assertion that something is beyond the realms of possibility.
No, if I saw that person resurrected, then I'd be convinced that something will be resurrected after the death.
Thank you. Right. So,
If
exactly. Right. Do you think that people in the past were any different?
I want to get him.
there are many stories growing up, and then, like I say,
Name one.
like Islam, for example, like Muhammad.
There's no rising. No, hold on. Sorry, that's wrong. That's wrong. Robert, sorry. Wait 1 second, Robert. You just said something that is factually untrue. Muslims don't believe that Muhammad is risen from the dead.
Maybe, but they still believe that. Believe that Muhammad is, if you like, God.
No, they don't. That's also not
Is,
true.
if you like, son of God, or
They don't believe that either.
what do they believe that he's?
Right, I'm not interested in talking about Islam. I'm talking about the resurrection.
No, I'm sorry. No, aren't you rather? Isn't it rather, a narrow conversation? Like I say, take Hinduism, which I've got a great deal of experience with.
Okay, great. Let's talk about that then.
Okay. It's a religion that predates Christianity by a long way.
Yeah.
Quite late.
Well, that's
no,
debatable.
it's not debatable.
It is debatable.
That is not debatable at all.
It really is.
Anyway, never mind that.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a great, deep belief in the Hindu gods.
Yeah.
If you like the Hindu, no, the people mistaken. The Hindu
Yeah.
a god with many deities, if you like.
Yes.
It's quite a complex thing, but it certainly goes back a long time. And for a long time, I was quite taken with that, as I was with Buddhism, which is a branch of
So let me.
So having said that, everyone, you can make an argument for your case.
Well, that's exactly what you invited me to do.
No, absolutely. Real argument, but I mean, your basic premise is that in order for me to believe in Jesus Christ, in order for me to believe in your God, Christian God, I have to accept the resurrection. That's the basic. What you say.
So
I've got to accept that.
Allow me to
Jesus,
reply,
I
Robert,
said,
because that's a mischaracterization.
my understanding is that my understanding has to be that Jesus died on the cross, and I accept that. I accept that it was a prophet who died on the cross. I fully accept that, which wasn't unusual in those days. There was a prophet called Jesus.
So let me reply, Robert.
But it's the rising from the, and then of course another.
Wait,
being the,
Robert, allow me to
being
reply.
the son of a god.
Robert.
Many people had gods in those days.
So allow me to reply. Because the thing is, we're talking about the resurrection. You asked me, we both agree that if the resurrection happened, Christianity is true. And we both agree,
yes.
when we both agree that the thing that would convince you is if you saw someone you know and love, who you know to have died, be resurrected, i.e. you saw them again in the flesh. You saw them again in a real body, in a real soma.
There's something very odd
Exactly.
about this.
So allow me to finish the point I was trying to make. So the point is that the point I'm trying to get you to make is, or get you to see, is that people in the past weren't gullible. They were more familiar with death than you and I. They would see death regularly on the street, on the highway. They'd see it in their homes. It's not a sanitized environment as it is now. They were very familiar with death, and the thing that made us. No, I'm going to finish a point because I allowed you to finish your point. The thing that convinced the first apostles to go out and preach wasn't that they read a Bible. The thing that convinced them was that they were convinced that they had seen a man that they know had died. They were convinced that they had seen that man.
Great book.
No, you see, this is where you get it wrong, Robert. They started preaching before any of the books were written. You just don't know the history.
But it's only the books we've got to rely on now. Look, the Holy Bible. I've read the Bible as a child, of course I did. And as many people here have done. It's a work of art. It's a
The
Sermon on the Mount, for example. I have to say to you, I'm talking about. I question some of the Old Testament, of course, as we all do.
Yeah.
The Sermon on the Mount is sort of make your hairs in the back of your neck.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, some of the words are very, very beautiful. But there are many great, beautiful books in the world.
Yes, of course there are.
I must pick up one point there. You said that they were more familiar with death than we are. I profoundly disagree with that. Please, profoundly disagree with that. This world is a cruel, wicked world with war, another war pending now. Could happen. War in the war we've had in Iraq, the war in Ukraine now, Russia, the possible war with China over Taiwan, the war now in the Sudan, Yemen. We could go on and on and on, and it's looking very, very bleak. People are dying in enormous numbers in this world as we speak. Am I familiar with that? Well, having traveled in India, I am familiar with people dying. I really am.
Yeah, and it was because of your travels in India that you're much more familiar with than most people here. How many dead bodies did you see in India?
There are many. I mean, we can't avoid turning the television on and seeing large numbers of people dying. I mean, you can't watch Gaza, for example, now. I was with a chap the other day, having a meal with a chap the other day, and he said to me, he burst into tears. He was watching the television, and he saw a child, he saw a young baby. He just completely broke down.
Okay, Robert.
As it happens, he's a Muslim.
Okay, Robert, this story, let's go back to the point, because as entertaining as... So let me reply to the point. I think the thing is, I guess what I'm trying to illustrate by my point of view is that this modern view that people in the past were just gullible is not fair. It's not fair.
Who says that?
Right, but so we've got to now ask this question. What convinced people 2,000 years ago to go out and start preaching that a man that they knew was dead was alive? What convinced them of that?
Well, I mean, so it said in the Bible. So it says in the
Right,
Bible.
so let me address that point.
That's all I've got to
Okay,
go on.
so let me address that point. Let me just clarify something. Are you saying that so it says in the Bible that they went out and preached? Or are you saying so it says in the Bible that a man rose from the dead?
If you like, I'm saying so it says in the Bible that no, let's get it right. So it says in the Bible there was a prophet, there was Jesus, who was now we go take a step up, who was the Son of God, God of all things, God of all things.
That's correct.
That's what it said in the Bible. But all we've got to go on, all I've got to go on, and all you've got to go in, is this wonderful book, which I certainly accept as a wonderful, sometimes very poetic book at times, sometimes a very cruel book at times as well.
Yeah, let's stay on the focus.
But I say to you, there are many great books. There's so many great
so
books.
allow me to reply to this
languages.
point. Because, Robert, the mistake that you're making, and it is a mistake that lots of people in Western culture make because they're not particularly educated in Christianity, is that the teaching and preaching of the church occurred before any book of the New Testament was ever written. The New Testament writings were written precisely because people believed in something. It wasn't because of the writings that people came to believe. So it's the wrong way round to say that people believe that a man had risen from the dead because it said so in a book. Not true. When you look at people like N.T. Wright, Dr. Bart Ehrman, Dr. Daniel Wallace, and I can give you a million other scholars, they all agree that people went out and preached a risen Jesus before they wrote about a risen Jesus. So that then goes back to the question that we've got to answer. We've got to answer this question. What would convince people who knew that the person that they loved had died, what would convince them that that person is now alive again?
Well, you said, first of all, it will never happen. People will never be convinced. People are so entrenched in their views. I mean, if you're once a Muslim, always a Muslim. Once a Christian, no, largely. Look, there's something like 1 billion Muslims in the world. There's 1 billion Christians. There's, I don't know, countless Hindus, probably 1 billion Hindus, I don't know, and there's Muslims, and they are deeply attached to their faith, deeply attached to it. They die for their faith. They'll be martyrs for their faith.
Yep.
So there is knowledgeable, there is academic, there is convinced, they are sure, they speak the truth. They know, as surely as you know. Now where I stand is that I would love to know. I'd love to know. My mother died a few years ago, actually. And
God rest her soul.
Well, but she was a highly academic lady, actually. And she looked at different things. She was brought up a Catholic, a Roman Catholic, actually. And firmly convinced by it. But as she grew older, then her religion changed and modified. She married then a C&E, my father. And so on. Her religion adapted and changed, but she never could leave her roots behind. She became a Christian Scientist, actually.
Can I just come?
But she was never. But she never tried to force anything down my throat.
So let's just come to it, because to be fair, you haven't actually engaged in the question that I've asked you, right? But I want to show to you why your own argument actually supports my argument, because you pointed out that largely people just stay in what they already believe.
Look,
and you're right. And that, no, I was not brought up a Christian. I'm a convert to Christianity. And actually, I was just speaking to a young lad who's converted to Christianity from atheism. He did it about 6 months ago, right? Just this week, I was speaking to a Jew in Israel who's become a follower of the Messiah, Jesus. So my point to you is that people do change their religions, but for a lot of people, when they have something that changes radically what they believe, right? It's usually because something happens that disturbs the tranquility of their worldview. We like to sit in our worldviews until something kicks us out of them. That could be a death. That could be the loss of a job. It could be the breakdown of a marriage. It could be something that tips up our life and tips it upside down, right? The Jewish people that came to believe in Jesus actually tell us what it was that made them stop being ordinary Jews. They tell us that the thing that made them stop being ordinary Jews was that the man that they knew to have died was dead. So the question you've got to engage with, I'm going to ask you again, is what convinced those first people that a man that they knew had died had risen from the dead? What convinced them? You haven't answered it.
No, but I will answer it in the same way I answered it before.
Yeah, I don't think you answered it before.
The way I would answer is this. They believe that. They believe that. They may well have believed that this individual rose from the dead, and there's doubt about that.
But why?
No, please let me finish, okay?
Go on.
Now, the next step is, that was written about, okay? That was written about, and now you then tell me, you transmit that to me, that this happened. It all follows that you believe, they believe that an individual rose from the dead. I have no personal evidence of that at all. I'll tell you what would make me become much more religious. I see the world as being, it's a very beautiful world at times. It's very beautiful, but it's an utterly cruel world. It's an utterly cruel world. People with children, the Holocaust, for example, 6 million people, we can't conceive of that. Children, ordinary tiny children, totally innocent of everything, being exterminated. Children in Gaza now being exterminated.
How Muslims wiped out Christians across the Middle East, or in Armenia,
how Christians have
been wiped out in northern Nigeria right now,
and how Christians have wiped out people across the world as well. We've got to be.
So what's where we're driving at, Robert?
What I'm saying is this. What I'm saying, in such a cruel world, in such a vicious, cruel world. How can a God, any loving God, allow that to happen?
Okay.
No, there's no.
So,
there's no.
So
you're going to say.
I'm going to address your question.
Because it's man's will, or.
No. So allow me to give my answer. Firstly, Robert, I think you one thing that I would ask you to take away from our conversation today. Again, to address the question that you have asked about suffering, I will address that question. But one thing that I would ask you to take away from today is you've not really engaged with the question of why the first Christians believed that Jesus had risen from the dead.
So
And that is a
so
question.
We're told.
And that is a question.
So we're told.
Right. So hold on one second, because this is a misunderstanding of how history is done. In terms of
Please don't repeat this.
no,
So
I'm trying to make a point. No, I'm going to make a point, which is that that you haven't taken on board the Christians, the New Testament, because of their experience, didn't believe because of their writings. They believed because of their experience, and then they wrote. And every scholar, academic scholar that has ever looked into this will agree with that statement. In other words, like we write about the life of Henry VIII, or we write about the life of Julius Caesar, or we write about the Jewish revolt in 70 AD. The event happens first, and then people write about it. Well, it's the same with the church and Christian belief. The event happened first, and then people wrote about it. That's not a disputable point amongst academics.
But academics have been writing about Islam.
Right.
Academics have been writing about Buddhism, about Hinduism, about all sorts of religions. That's what academics do. And I have to say, I've written about a few things myself. And I would dearly believe, but let me ask you again, the question is, you haven't answered. Why?
I said I would come to it.
Well, why?
I know the question, I'm going to answer it. I can answer it, I already know the question.
Why in this wicked world?
Have Muslims fought a jihad that killed 2 million Christians in Sudan?
Wicked world.
Why have they killed hundreds of thousands of Christians in Nigeria?
How can it be the Christians?
How did they drive out 120,000 Christians in Armenia? How did they try to murder Nissa Hussein here in the UK?
Well,
right. Exactly. So my point is, I'm aware of these examples. I know that the world is a cruel.
So the question is this:
why?
How would a God?
Right, now I'm going to answer that question.
Are we just toys?
Now I'm going to
played with.
But now I'm going to answer that question, okay? And then what I want to point out to you, Robert, is you haven't still addressed my point. So that's the point I'd like you to go away. But now to address your question directly, how as a Christian do I reconcile the fact that the world is vicious and cruel with the fact that I believe in a God who loves me? How do I deal with that? This is how. God has given us free will, and God wants us to enter into a relationship with Him lovingly and freely. Love requires free will, because you can't love someone if you're not free. So choices have to have real consequences. God knows how every single choice of every single human being that has ever been born ripples out in the currents of history, how it impacts the next person's choices. From the smallest to the greatest. From you deciding to make that cup of tea at 9 o'clock in the morning, to Adolf Hitler signing from the SS signing the pieces of paper, coming up with final solution. God knows how all of these things ripple out in history.
What's God doing?
I'm going to answer this question. God allows the world that exist because it is only in this world that the greatest number of people will freely choose to accept a loving God.
Let me ask you a question. Say to Dr. Cameron, if that's your God, then your God. I can't say it more seriously than that. If God allows...
You just bring damnation on yourself.
Right. If God allows people to go and kill other people...
No, it doesn't.
No, if God allows Christians
doesn't
in
make
Germany...
Them. They choose.
Jews in the
so you want to be in a prison.
So
you want to be in a prison.
Children in Gaza today...
So you want to be in a prison.
God allows that I your God.
You want to be in a prison.
I don't want your God.
You want to be in a prison. You want to be a prisoner.
I don't want your God.
You want to be a prisoner because the consequence of what he's saying.
I want a loving, decent God. And
how can you be loved? Robert, calm down. Calm down.
Free will to
You've drank too much coffee, Robbie. You've drank too much tea. Too much tea. Robert, listen, think logically about your argument. Think logically about...
Look, let me shake.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
You look after yourself.
And you look after yourself.
Yeah.
But just bear in mind...
I am going to reply to what you've said, though. You might want to hang around to hear that.
Well, it's...
Have you got a Bible? Have you got a Bible?
I've got a few... I've got a number of books.
Then I would like to give you a gift. I would like to give you a
No,
gift.
you mustn't. You mustn't.
No, it's a gift to you.
This is something. Well, I will.
So, Matt, I think you're an intelligent man, an
You're
academic
asking
man.
me to read it, you see.
Yes,
That's the point.
exactly.
Another thing to read.
Yes. It's Pascal's wager.
Okay.
An interesting,
that's
an
my-
intellectual
that's my-
academic for you. An intellectual book for you.
That's my subject. You see.
There you go. You see, it's almost like it was meant for you, Robert.
Mathematics is my-
It's almost like God meant it for
All
you.
the best,
Anyway,
my friend.
so
What's your name?
Bob. I'm known as Bob here. So let me reply to Robert's point, because Robert said, if that is the God you believe in, then fuck God. Why would I want to believe in a God that allows cruelty? No, Robert, let me finish.
Too far.
Okay, right? God bless you, Robert. Right, but let me explain why Robert's logic is wrong. Because if God does not allow us to have real free choices, to walk away from God, if all that He allows us to do is good, that means that all of you will believe in God and you will follow God. In other words, you're not adopted as children, as the Christian religion teaches. You are nothing but prisoners and slaves. Prisoners and slaves, ladies and gentlemen. Because if God doesn't give you real choice, and He only gives you one road to walk, and that's the road towards Him, the road of virtue, the road of only doing kindness and goodness, then you're a slave. You're not free. But now let me ask you this question. God bless you. I like him, he's a good heckler. But let me ask you this question. Does love require freedom? To love someone, must you be free? Yes, you must be free. God loves you, and so He does not imprison you. And that is why God allows suffering in the world. Because He must allow you to reject His love. He must allow you to live an unloving life. Because only in freedom can you choose to love God. And this is why the Christian message is so beautiful. Because God is offering us adoption as His children. He is willing to embrace us as His children, ladies and gentlemen.
So did God create suffering, Bob?
So, ladies and gentlemen, did God create suffering? In Isaiah, it says, I am the creator. I am the creator of blessings and calamity. God allows calamity. God allows suffering. He allows a world in which suffering occurs, because suffering, ladies and gentlemen, allows us to make choices about whether we invest our money in building nuclear weapons or whether we invest our money finding the cure to cancer. Real suffering in the world presents us with real choices. It allows us to make choices to grow, ladies and gentlemen. And so God must allow us to grow so that we can come to Him and embrace Him freely in love. Okay, that answers your question. Right.
I'll come and see you for once.
Okay, why is it nonsense?
Because you know as well as I do that
Talk to the crowd.
If God created everything,
Yeah.
He also created evil.
No.
He created the fallen angels.